So now let's turn to the funnest part of the program here and hear from our good friend, professor, leader, teacher, Bob Bruner. I want to give you a few highlights here. Darden faculty member since 1982, came to us from the Darden of the North. It would take all morning to list the accolades that he has achieved, but that were outlined when he was honored as Dean of the Decade. Let me tell you a few things. Bob is the most prolific case writer in the history of Darden, bar none. He has written 349 cases and tech notes to his name, sold over 1 million cases in the last 10 years, and I think he is widely regarded as if not the master teacher of the Socratic method. In fact, he wrote a book called Socrates' Muse on how to teach the case method. That's one round of applause. I'm not done. In addition, there's this thing out there called university professor. What is that? Well, when UVA thinks that you are so incredible and you're such a master teacher, they give you a university professorship as an honor. And it's super rare to get those. And what it means is that you are allowed to teach whatever subject you want at UVA at any school. Bob got that incredibly rare distinction, which brought luster to Darden. That's second round of applause. Of course, as if that was not enough, he also served as dean from 2005 to 2015, after a period where there had been many different deans in several years. Stabilized the school and raised the bar for Darden on every dimension that you can imagine. Whether it was the quality of our student body, however you want to measure that, whether it was the quality of our professors, whether it was the rankings that we love and hate at the same time. We love them when they're good, we hate them when they're not good. Technology, every dimension you can think of. He also launched the very successful executive MBA program for Darden, a new format, and he gave the school a global mindset. He took Darden global, and he did all of that during the cursed Great Recession of 2007 and 2008. He was perfect for it because his expertise is on financial crises, so it was just great. Gave him a chance to use history. But on a personal note, he's been an incredible mentor to me, incredible counselor, and if I've had any success at Darden, it's thanks to Bob. Because when he came here, he said it's like a baton, running a relay race. Run as hard as you can, hand it to someone. So he left the school with incredible momentum, and all I had to do was just to ride that wave to here. So with that, I'm so grateful for your personal counsel. Please welcome our thoughtful, wise, humble, and caring leader, Bob Bruner.
Thank you. Thank you. Enough. Enough. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Thank you. This is a tremendous gathering. I see a cross-section of the entire Darden community here. I see alums, I see faculty, I see Gene Lidke, Pedro Matos, I see Ray Smith, Barbara Millar, Yorgos Salianas, Yael Gershka-Cocaine, and Mingjer Chen. I will tell you my wife Bobby and son Alex and my granddaughter Charlotte, who would be maybe Darden 2050, I don't know, but the whole world feels like it's here, and it's humbling to get together in a gathering like this and try to say something meaningful. But I am confident that any of my faculty colleagues would approach this few minutes that I have with you to ask, well, what's the teachable moment here? What's the teachable moment? This isn't an opportunity for Bob to come up and talk about the glories of this or that, what one's personal accomplishments. It's really an opportunity for us all together to celebrate what we've done. So it's not about me, it's about all of us. It's not about average, it's not about self-congratulation. It ought to be about excellence and our commitment to pursue excellence. And it's not about the past, it ought to be about the future. So I would like to serve up to you a case study. If you could beam up the case. And here's the deal. I'm going to ask you to quickly read it. It'll take you about a minute. And then, and I'll read it aloud if you can't see it so easily from the sky deck up there. But I'm going to ask you to turn to your neighbors, left, right, forward, back, because we never do anything at Darden without a learning team or a study group. And then I'll bring us back together again after 4 minutes and invite us to combine our thinking. So the case says you have just been appointed leader of a troubled business unit. A change in business model under the previous boss forced the unit to raise prices. So, though it was a quality leader, the unit was, customer satisfaction began to suffer. Revenues fell, the unit had to tighten its belt. This of course, was accompanied by some internal friction. Engineers would fight with creatives, production leaders would bicker with marketers. I could add parenthetically, everybody hated the finance staff. And suppliers were unhappy. The board of directors and the CEO, of course, pledged their support to the new leader, but they wanted a turnaround, and by the way, very soon would be nice. So you parachute into a situation like this, and corporate HR takes charge, and they say, oh, here's your schedule for tomorrow. Your meeting at 8 a.m. is a town hall meeting with basically all the employees. So what do you say? What will you do? And I'm just curious, anybody been in a situation like this? I see I see some hands, many hands. I'd say we have an abundance of life experience in the room. So I'd like you to turn to those near you and combine your thoughts for 4 minutes, starting now. Thank you. Everybody, let's come back together. Let's come back together. You are about to walk into this meeting, and what will you do? And I'm especially interested in why. And I'd love to cold call Dean Johnson down here in front, class of 1984. It's too late to pass. Yes, it's too late to pass. Please, what would you do?
Oh, thanks very much for this. I brought my son here to be embarrassed in front of as well. So you've got some. I'm going to basically crib what my study group said, which is we've got problems and we've got internecine warfare here, and you've got to bring the groups together in a mixed basis, and you've got to agree what the future has got to look like, what their vision is going to be. The past is gone. We may be able to raise prices. We may not be able to, but we're all in this together. And we've got to come up with joint ideas because competition is hard enough competing with other people, much less competing or battling with ourselves.
Okay. Just opening comment, you walk into the room and...
Hey, I know this has been a very difficult last 6 months. And the people in this room that have been battling are the same people in this room that are going to have to get us out of this ditch. And we're not going to get out of this ditch by fighting with each other. We've got to come up with solutions that but that satisfy a number of concerns. The only way we can do that was with cross-functional groups and telling them that this is it. This is the team that is going to get us out. Let's make this team as effective as possible.
We got to get out of this together because there is no other exit that's acceptable.
The only exit is through.
The only exit is that way. Joaquin, you've had some experience with something like this, I bet. What would you do going into the meeting?
I think the vision has to start with the customer. With what is it that we do that unite us all? What is it that we stand for? I think you have to acknowledge the problems that you had, but you also have to put your differences aside and start building towards that vision. I think it has to, you can't leave that meeting without having a common plan and a next step so that all of this translates into concrete actions after.
And how would you bring that out in the meeting?
I think you have to acknowledge or you have to realize who are the causes of change in the organization, who are those that actually can take that vision to the next level and to the next groups. And you have to acknowledge their commitment, their work, but also you have to put it out there that is that they have a big challenge in front of them to, if we work to accomplish what we're going to accomplish.
You're looking for allies. You aren't about to do this alone. You have to enlist people. You are in the process of recruiting to get people to step behind you. Mandy, how about you?
Sure. So class of 09, and I partnered with Dick Dowling here, class of 87, who had you as a professor and said you changed his life. Transformed it. So what we agreed upon was not only what the other two gentlemen said before us, but also the metaphor of how storytelling can actually help you engage the audience right there in the room.
Yeah, metaphor of storytelling. Tell us what you mean. What is that about?
So maybe tell an experience that you've had in the past and utilize, just like you did, Bob, when you asked who'd had experience with this before and folks raised their hand. Begin to engage the audience to help you tell that story. Maybe it's something that you did before you got to this company, or maybe it's something you've heard about that happened here. So the power of storytelling really does help make impressions on people, and it also can give them a future, rallying message or phrase or whatever it may be.
What kinds of stories would help you accomplish the kinds of things that we're talking about up here?
Dick, do you want to talk?
Stories that take all of those quote-unquote functions and tie them together. And what were the common elements of the skills by all the people, whether they are HR or production or whatever it is, that bound together, had a goal, accomplished it, and moved something forward. They did something that was small that rolled up to become something big, and that people should take confidence in a way that if they've done it like that in a prior experience, they can get out of this mess. It just takes a little recommitment of what common values they have.
Right? So stories help to bring us together, bind us together. The word bind is a very powerful word. It isn't just sufficient to say, let's just kumbaya, you're suggesting something much more powerful has to happen on this event. And if we fail, if the meeting ends and you haven't begun that process, what are the consequences?
I would just say you have to come into the meeting with a plan B that in my mind is in formulation. I'm not sure what I would. I think you'd have to then you have to regroup and take a step back and probably have a smaller group. You might not want to have 100. You might want to start with 10 sub-leaders and then come back at them.
Hands up. Yeah. Bill?
I've done this before, and I could tell you that one thing we haven't talked about is right sizing. Part of your plan has to revolve around, in a simple way, it's, okay, what's our business? What are the orders we have? Who are the people we need to fulfill those orders? And if you do that kind of process, we started it at our company, we call it job mapping. And so in a lot of cases, you've got to combine jobs to get the product out the door and still make money. So part of this case that doesn't talk about it is what's the right staffing levels? If you go through that process, what you'll end up with at least 3 buckets. One is who are essential to getting the product out the door and making the business stabilize. 2 is maybe you need some people temporarily to help you do that. And thirdly, who are the people that you don't need? It's an ugly case that way. And I remember I used to teach this case in John Colley's class. I can remember one time distinctly where a gal in the back row walked out of the classroom because she had been fired in her prior job and was sort of saying, geez, is there a nicer way to do this? But in our case, we didn't have a bank line. We had the cash in our bank. So it was simple to say, we can either keep everybody around for the next 6 weeks and then go out of business, or we can fix this business. But to do that, we have to make some tough decisions. So we let go, it probably was 50 people, and the only way we could do it was in a town hall in the lunchroom. And then the big decision was, who do we tell first? The people we're keeping for a couple of months, or the people we're letting go today?
So certainly in a meeting like this, your very first opportunity to speak with the employees, you're suggesting we have to acknowledge the urgency of the situation. I'd welcome any other contributions. Hands, there's a hand up over here. We need to hear you on a microphone. It's coming up.
This is a complicated process that you're describing, and it's common, I would think. It couldn't have happened unless there was a lack of on-site management, like a Darden, on-site listening, multiple abilities to make comments on observations on the fly. All that was missing. There simply was a scarcity of oversight at each step, and this is not a difficult skill to teach.
Your phrase listening, your word listening is actually a powerful choice.
Anybody could have done it. Anybody could have taught it. Anybody could have caught it. Anybody off the street could have done a better job, and you need to be armed with that insight going into that meeting.
Do you think the employees are going to be surprised by the acknowledgement of the challenge facing the business unit?
Well, listen, to me it would be a chess game going in there. I mean, I wouldn't just go in blind.
Yeah? What's your next move?
If you don't know your next move, you shouldn't be there. Somebody should have come to you first.
You need a next move, right. Other hands. There's a hand up, a couple of hands up, way up in the corner.
Well, I'm going to assume 100 employees is the number of employees in the business unit. So with that assumption, okay, I don't want to go in there and have everyone with their bows and arrows shooting at me and having questions and coming at me about things that I will not be in an ability to answer. I would welcome them. I would introduce myself, explain how I got here. And I think as we talked about a little bit in the beginning, I mean, like, let's say it's you guys and I'm here. Like, I'm honored to be here. I really want to work with you guys. I know there's a lot for me to learn. So being humble and, and there are some ideas of how I'd like to meet with more of you in smaller groups. So I think explaining the process of how you're going to get to know them and the unit and how you are going to operate as a boss. Not saying layoffs, not talking about that, but because they're probably sitting there somewhat scared. And, we don't want that because that's another issue. So I think you just gotta be humble, be professional, and be short. Explain your process, keeping it very short and simple. You're still figuring out where the bathrooms are. You know what I mean? So to be able to jump into, we're going to do this, do that, and people you're not going to be embraced by your employees. I think it will just further the back talking. And even if you're a great person, a talented, skilled person, I think you're just setting yourself up for harder work if you come in too strong and you don't know what you're talking about.
Thank you. You've been very patient, right? Wait, we need you on the microphone so that you're being recorded for posterity. It's why we need.
Sure. I was just going to say as well, I think there's, to build on the previous comment, really honoring the existing organization, right? Like they're all coming in and they're putting their trust in you as the leader. They've invested, all the time of their lives previously. And so touching on that, making sure that you're keenly aware of how you want to be seen by the organization and how you're looking to sort of, all of the things that they expect as table stakes, you're the leader, you have to turn this around. But also how you're gonna look to lead them as a group, how you're appearing, and really honoring like just the humility of, yes, I'm coming in here and I want to make sure that we do this because it honors everything that's come before while we look to the future.
Thank you. We got time for one more. Kathy Friedman, right here in the middle. We need you on the microphone, I'm told.
I think this, am I on? This is a balance between ask and tell. If you go in there and you just spend the whole time kumbayaing and asking everybody how they feel and what they want to do, you're not going to get anywhere. If you go in there telling everybody you're large and in charge and telling them what to do, they're not going to believe you. So it's this balance between the two that's very important. I think you have to tell them that you have experience. You have to show them why you were hired. But then you have to ask them, and we talked in our group, we called it a listening tour. But then once you do the listening tour, you have to have action after that. And Byrne suggested, you ask each department to come back, and then you have small meetings, as one of our colleagues over here said. But it's this full balance between ask and tell. We've all been in situations where people just ask, and it's really nice, and everyone leaves and loves the leader, but nothing gets done. And if you tell, everybody walks out and says, that person is a jerk, I don't want to work with them.
Well, thank you very, very much, all of you. And I know there are other hands up, but time is passing, and I would tell you that you aced the case. The reason I present this isn't even a case, it's a little vignette. The reason I present it to you is this is kinda the situation I faced when I parachuted into the dean's office in 2005. I'd been away for a year. I'd been a visitor at Columbia University, something I did periodically to finish a book or start a book or whatever, but I hadn't been in depth in the Darden community. I had a general sense of the challenges facing the community, but came back and President John Castine asked if I would serve as dean for an interim dean for, I don't know, a few months or a year at most, and 1 year turned into 10, and there's maybe a story behind there. So much I could say about this, but in the interest of what is the teachable moment here, let me just say that the background is very important. So your references to wounded organizations is very wise. A number of you raised experiences you've had. Darden at the time, I wouldn't say was wounded. We were a business school in the top echelon, but my predecessor, Robert Harris, who could not be here today, however, did a number of very, very courageous things that, in my view, warrant his status as a hero of the Darden Business School. In 2003, a year that those of you in the class of '03 remember very well, he signed a financial self-sufficiency agreement with the University of Virginia. What this meant was Darden would forego millions of dollars of support provided through state aid provided by the Commonwealth of Virginia, and in return we would be allowed to price our degree programs at market. Now that's a painful experience, especially for the members of the class of 2005 who learned that Darden was was quite a bargain and showed up and were presented with a higher ticket price. But what it meant was that we would be subject to the same market forces that we teach our students about. And believe me, markets are highly disciplinary, as all of you know. And it just seemed just, but also it would provide the institution with much more flexibility and, in fact, encouragement to launch new programs. Now, it was on Bob Harris's watch that he commissioned a committee to undertake the question, should Darden launch an executive MBA program? That committee came back, and in my very first faculty meeting in August of 2005, the faculty debated and voted to establish the executive MBA program. I think Bob's, and you can see my granddaughter is so excited by these notions, but you can see that by foregoing state aid in the past 20 years, state assistance to higher education here in the University of Virginia has declined quite significantly. If we had remained on the dole, Darden would be a shadow of its self today. We are a much stronger school, but it took a lot of courage to agree to that self-sufficiency plan and to carry the school forward through some negative feedback from students at the time. Of course, we supplemented the rising rates with very liberal grant and scholarship support for students. But we have a vision, and we listen to alumni, we listen to the wider Darden community, and my listening to the community has told me that it wants Darden to be a global player, a major contributor, a transformational leader on the global stage, and not a school of more constrained and restricted vision. At any rate, I'd like to make Bob Harris's ears burn, and I would ask you to join me in a round of applause to Bob Harris for what he did. You have seen this incredible score sheet of accomplishments. You heard Dean Beardsley. There's actually more to the story of the accomplishments. I will tell you that the accomplishments in the last 8 years dwarf what I was able to accomplish as dean and what the school did. This is magnificent, what the dean and his team have accomplished. You see a hotel, I see an integrated educational experience for our executive MBA students, for visiting executives in our non-degree programs, for all kinds of visitors who want to come to Darden and experience the transformational classroom experience we can provide. But most of all, I would tell you that we made it through the pandemic, through an extraordinarily stressful episode in the school's history. Imagine Jean Liedke, Yael, Pedro, Barbara, all my colleagues here and beyond pivoted virtually 180 degrees to learn how to teach digitally, virtually, and to deliver programs that the graduating class of 2020, 2021, 2022 continue to tell us in surveys that Darden remains the #1 teaching school in the world. And I have to give enormous credit to Scott and his team for mobilizing us, for helping to harness the incredible digital resources of the school. We had dabbled, we had experimented with online education, but the uptake on that was quite dramatic. I will never forget the change required of me. I was midway through a semester-length course at the moment, but we dropped everything and learned how to teach online. Those of us who had never done it before, others who had, taught the rest of us. We got together in learning teams, just like MBA students, and shared and compared our practices. It was one of the heroic moments in our history, and I'd like you to give a round of applause to all my colleagues who made that happen. So the epilogue to this story is, I went into the town hall meeting, and my colleagues who were here at the time can keep me honest, but I remember that meeting had a very spirited conversation, and in fact, it didn't finish the conversation. The conversation actually went on for months, if not a few years, but it was in that meeting that I asked my colleagues this question: on what can we all agree? So yeah, the marketers, the production people, the engineers, the creatives, blah, 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 had differences of opinion about a lot of things. But it wasn't the time to highlight those differences. It was a time to say, what are we all about? And I would tell you that the themes that I remember quite clearly coming out of that conversation and successive conversations was Darden would be all about teaching excellence, that we were intending to become or be the world leader in classroom instruction in business, that we wanted to create the best learning experience for students, focused on students. And the phrase we use is student-centered teaching. We begin as teachers thinking about where the students are, and then design classroom experiences around that, rather than starting from, I'm a big know-it-all, and I'm just going to cram these ideas down the students. But we begin where the students are, that we would focus on self-discovery by students of the big ideas in business, and thereby make them stronger, and thereby model for the students what it means to learn professionally throughout the rest of their careers. For I assert to you that what we teach at Darden is how we teach. What we teach is how we teach, how to ask questions, how to build that into telling. Yeah, there has to be some telling in professional life, but it's a combination of asking and telling. I wrote a book about teaching by the case method, and the title is Ask Often, Tell Seldom. Ask often, tell seldom. The odds are not only will you learn more about the life of students and their challenges, but you'll model for the students how they themselves can continue to grow on into the future. And I've argued that you can do that in professional life. Now, it takes a service-oriented culture to do that. That was another big theme that arose in that meeting, in those early meetings. We intended the phrase servant leadership is another phrase that emerged at times, but the notion is that you see a problem, roll up the sleeves and get after it. Let's solve it. And in fact, that was absolutely characteristic of the pivot we made in March of 2020. We saw lots of problems, and people really did suspend other important things they were doing to help save one another and propel one another into the digital classroom. We agreed in that early meeting and subsequent meetings to focus on practice, somewhat less on theory, but rather to use theory to inform better practice. We agreed that we would be a school focused on leadership, not just technical mastery, but real leadership, how to help lend direction to organizations. And we agreed that we would be a school of high purpose and high values rather than just expediency, just getting the job done and not worrying about consequences. Finally, we asserted that we would be a school of community, that it was an expectation that faculty would engage with students, not merely in the classroom, but before and after, that we would hang around, that we would see students in the halls and meet them for coffee, at morning coffee every day, that we would engage with student clubs, probably go to student parties and greet students in their homes. In our homes, Bobby and I would often entertain students at Thanksgiving, particularly international students. And all of this is the norm, has been the norm at Darden, and I think it's part of our secret sauce. We weren't worried about having to be a big school. We just wanted to be the best. Bigger is not better. We said better is better. Let's focus on doing extraordinarily well what we can do. So through these and other assertions of who we are, Darden gained enormous traction. I won't go through the litany of things we did on my watch. I'm very proud, and our staff who were in the room, admissions ticked up very sharply in the caliber of students. No disrespect to previous classes, but placements ticked up, routinely ranking in the top 95th and higher percentile of students with jobs at graduation. Rankings ticked up sharply. We had wonderful engagement with alums. In fact, the constitution of our alumni foundation, our foundation board today, reflects enormous depth and wisdom. And I see even more rising up through the ranks. So the school began to engage in very successful ways. But what's the point? So the point of bringing you this little vignette of what happened in August of 2005 is to position it as part of a 20-year-long transformation in Darden. Now, Darden, I've been here 41 years, and the Darden I came to in 1982 is vastly different. It was a very good school then. I was proud to join it. I was, I think, the first faculty member who showed up with an Apple IIe personal computer. This alarmed some colleagues, but we got past that. And yet here we are in 2023 with ChatGPT, a brand new technology that should alarm us. And, you know, I am highly confident that because I know our leaders and our faculty, young and senior colleagues, I am highly confident that we'll sort that out. I think that we have succeeded in changing and adapting to the world, but adhering to the kinds of principles that I just described to you as being central to Darden as of 2005. I would say actually many of those same values prevailed at the day that I joined Darden. And the point is, Darden has changed. Darden is changing. Darden should change. I think that's what you want. And yet, we hang on to what's important. And the fact that we've done that in this span of time over the 20 years, Bob Harris, Scott Beardsley, myself, Ray Smith, all of us contributed to a dramatic rise, a dramatic strengthening in Darden's ability to fulfill its mission and serve all of you and serve the wider world. And for that, I'm extremely proud. I would tell you that in my 41 years at Darden, serving as a member of the faculty has been a thrilling privilege, Great students, strong colleagues, wonderful alums, wonderful extended support from faculty and staff. And I've gone on, I hope I've delivered on some of the investment the school has made in me. And I've written a bunch of books, lots of articles, lots of cases, started all kinds of courses, done things across grounds as university professor and the like. But I would tell you that apart from marriage, Bobby, and apart from raising kids and now watching grandkids come along, serving as your dean has been the most fulfilling thing I've ever done because I've witnessed the ability of the Darden community to rally, to come together in a very, very inspiring way. And for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I give you my very best wishes and my confidence that the future holds good things for us all. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wave to everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.